Convicted Ghislaine Maxwell hires Harvey Weinstein's attorneys to launch a $10 million appeal. The New Yorker's Naomi Fry wrote a piece about Ghislaine Maxwell titled, "The Relentless Ego of Ghislaine Maxwell," and a legal expert told the Daily Mail that Maxwell was a total narcissist, who would perhaps never reveal the names of people who conspired with Epstein. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carol Lieberman is reported to have told the Toronto Globe that Maxwell appears to be a sociopath, who may also have a narcissistic personality. In December 2021, Ghislaine was found guilty of luring and trafficking of a minor, transporting a minor with the intent to engage in criminal relations activity, conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in criminal relations activity, conspiracy to commit trafficking of minors, and conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal relations acts. Maxwell received a 20-year prison sentence in June 2022 and is currently serving at the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida, after being found guilty of luring young women and girls to the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking relations ring, which is now an abandoned U.S. Virgin Island, called Little St. James. Alleged as an Epstein co-conspirator, Maxwell could not believe that she would be convicted for helping registered relations offender Jeffrey Epstein to exploit minors as young as 14, between 1994 and 1997, of which she lied about under oath. In an interview on Talk TV's Jeremy Kyle Live, Maxwell says that she believes Epstein was murdered, and then she goes on about her experiences with Bill Clinton and when she met the Queen. "I wish them, time is ticking on and to be able to have a productive and good life going forward. And that's what I hope for them," Maxwell says of Epstein victims. Since Epstein's death in 2019, Epstein and Maxwell victims have recently been offered compassion and given the opportunity to seek monetary compensation, which could range up to $1 million, without the protocol of lengthy court cases. To the shock of victims and perhaps the world, Ghislaine is demanding that her legal fees be covered via her stake to claim the Epstein estate, as she launches the $10 million appeal. Maxwell is facing to possibly serving more than 30 years in prison.
The false self-image of the narcissist can emerge and disappear as the narcissist hijacks and mimics the emotional IQ of current sources of supply, as well as the targeted prey. Like a chameleon, the narcissist switches up, demonstrates, and executes the perfect emotional formula from his or her resonance table in order to ensnare targeted prey and keep current sources of supply maintained. The true identity of the narcissist is extremely difficult to reveal due to his or her changing moods, identities, and behavior pattern.
What compels malignant narcissist scammers and other con artists to devote most of their energy into fabricating a life of deception? They seem to lack an inner moral compass, guilt and remorse for harming others and stealing their money. Eventually, these types do get caught, even after careful and meticulous tactics, false images, and moral corruption that reaches beyond their charisma. There seems to be an underlying trace of pathological sociopaths in all fields and perhaps all levels of government. They are all malignant narcissists. However, not all narcissistic personality disorders are sociopaths, while some are exploitive and abusive in their interpersonal relationships. The DSM-5 does not have criteria for sociopaths. However, when the malignant narcissist is found to have antisocial traits, then you have a sociopath. Deception for the sociopaths becomes a way of life and reflective of a mindset that affords them to commit white-collar crimes such as romance scammers. Most malignant narcissists are successful con artists with the ability to give a false persona that comes across as them being caring and genuine. They seem to have a sixth sense ability to detect in others what they need, and therefore will tailor-make their personality to fit what people want from them. This is how narcissists do what's called grooming in order to gain trust. Once trust is established, then the exploitation of the relationship starts, with subtle manipulation and disregard for personal boundaries. The narcissist can project feelings of aggression, hostility, and deep resentment onto others and often feel paranoid and that others are jealous of their superior accomplishments, intellect, and status. Malignant narcissist scammers seem to be masterminds at long-term strategic planning to how they will create a deceitful image and convoluted activity to exploit others while having fantasies of being invincible and avoiding consequences. What's interesting is that the narcissistic personality often has a gift for lying compulsively, but in the end, have trouble in remembering all of their web of lies that reveal discrepancies in what they say and do. Very often, as a defense, the narcissist develops selective amnesia. They are quick to defend themselves with claims of narcissistic injury and rage when their motives are questioned or rebuked by those who they prey upon. Having a lack of moral compass, empathy, and remorse for their victims, narcissist romance scammers generally may look down on those who fall for their scam. Due to being highly skilled with fake empathetic responses, the malignant narcissist scammer and other con artists are not very apparent to detect.
Lib Hart fell victim to not one, not two, but 3 men over the span of 8 years online. She just recently found out that it was all a scam and stopped spending the money just last week. One man who was supposed to receive money from her today actually texted her during our interview.
But she had it in my room. Okay. He's here now. Sorry, my love, for not texting you.
That's one of the men just texted you?
Just now.
This is the 3rd man Bonnie Lib Hart formed a virtual relationship with over the last 8 years, sending pictures back and forth, praying together, and talking about a life together.
I will love you till my last breath.
But all 3 men lived overseas and started asking for money months into the relationship.
I had the money. I had the $430,000 in my bank account, in a savings account. Then I had owned a house, $650,000. I got a reverse mortgage on it after I spent all the money in the $430,000, and I just kept sending money.
Lib Hart says about 2 years after her husband suddenly passed away, that's when this all started.
I had no clue they were doing. I believed them. I wanted to get married again.
The Federal Trade Commission says more consumers than ever are falling for romance scammers. The commission reported victims losing $547 million in 2021 alone.
One of my friends said, "I think you're being scammed." And I said, "No, this guy and I talk back and forth about the Bible. We pray together." And they said, "Well, we got a thing coming on at the First Baptist Church in Huntsville for its fraud and romance scams."
That's when Lib Hart discovered it was all a lie.
Malignant narcissist scammers. There is a growing number of people who are beginning to understand that malignant narcissist scammers are more than just criminals. They seem to be mentally suited for scamming and committing other white-collar crimes. Some narcissist scammers claim to believe in a higher power, yet there is a lack of remorse, compassion, and understanding that the criminal activities that they chose to engage in is wrong. What's interesting is that many malignant narcissist scammers seem to think that as long as there's not a major loss, it's not a real scam, but this provides them an emotional cover.
I'm not the one denying that he's Tony Jamaica. When you look in your computer here, and you see it's Tony Jamaica.
What do you mean?
42.
This is what you gonna call for what, sir? I doesn't belong to this.
This is not your computer?
This guy just now run away. You have asked him about this computer.
According to FBI, romance scams can occur when a criminal adopts a fake online identity to gain a victim's affection and trust. Unfortunately, what happens next is that the scammer often uses the illusion of a romantic or close relationship to manipulate and/or steal from the victim. Scammers seem genuine, so are very good at what they do while moving quickly to establish a relationship and perhaps propose marriage, as to make plans to meet in person, without the intention of doing so. Scam artists will often say they are in the architect or construction industry outside the US, which makes it easier to avoid meeting in person. This is also more plausible should they ask for money for a medical emergency or unexpected legal fees. Tips to avoid malignant narcissist romance scammers. Be careful of what you share online. Research their profile to see if it has been used elsewhere. Go slowly and ask questions. Beware if they attempt to isolate you. Beware if the individual promises to meet in person but then repeatedly makes excuses as to why he or she can't. You have reason to be suspicious if you have not met them in person after a month of meeting online. Do not send money to anyone you have only communicated with online or by phone.